opportunity, a special responsibility. We can help Ron Paul amplify this important message for the rest of America to hear on Tuesday, January 3rd at 7 p.m. at the GOP caucus. Who here is committed to turning out on caucus night for Ron Paul? And you see some friends and family out there with us too. We get a strong turnout. We can really help take this message onto the national stage and get a great result for Ron Paul on caucus night. It's easy. If you're not a registered Republican, you can register as a Republican on your way in the door. It's easy to participate in the caucus. We need everybody to do that. Now, Dr. Paul has to move to an appointment pretty quick, but we do have a little bit of time for some questions from Iowans, from Iowa voters. So if you've got a question, raise your hand. I'll bring the microphone to you so that you can ask your question. Okay, so I'll pick it up. Right, sir.
You're in better shape mentally and physically than the other candidates. How do you stay so fit?
I'm sorry, I got this.
You're in better shape mentally and physically than the other candidates. How do you stay so fit?
Well, thank you. I try to exercise. I try to eat right. This morning, even though we got in very, very late last night from New Hampshire, I did get out and got my walk in and cleared my head and loosened up my muscles. I really emphasize exercise. I did that with my patient. I always assumed exercise could solve all. My kids would kid me because I would tell them that exercise is a real panacea for good health. So a lot of exercise, and I think eating right. And sometimes genetics helps too. So
I've noticed recently having debates that the other candidates start to look at you like a school teacher. You're the school teacher. Before they used to polarize, and now they're paying attention closely to what you're saying. I think it's fantastic. The other, I just have a little suggestion. I was in Minneapolis 4 years ago for the big party, and Jesse Ventura was, I don't know if you consider giving him a call and see if he's busy. I think he tells the truth just like you do.
yes, it's true. Jesse Ventura was at our meeting last time, and he's an independent-minded person, and we have a lot of things that we agree on.
I was just wondering, if you did happen with the nomination, do you have anybody now as a prospect who you might run on a ticket with?
That I would run with somebody else.
No, your VP.
Mine?
Who would be your VP?
He's asking who that I might pick. You know, there are so many good people, some better known than others, that would have agreement. It would have to be somebody that we would be philosophically compatible with, that understood Austrian economics, understand personal liberties, understood the Federal Reserve. So I haven't been volunteering any names, but there certainly would be. I haven't gotten to that point. Maybe I'll have to be a lot more serious about it after January 3rd.
How would you overturn our health care?
Pardon me?
How would you overturn the Obama health care?
Overturn it? How would I overturn Obama health care? Well, the easiest way would be if you have a new Congress comes in with a new president, just repeal it. The president also, with that bill, you can issue, which again gives way too much authority, in that you can go on again, off again. Some people can get out of it. I think if there's a vehicle to give waivers, then yeah, we should give waivers. But nobody, what system you're talking about, whether it's education or medical care or the Federal Reserve, one thing that we ought to always really fight for is the option to get out. Once they make it absolutely prohibited for getting out, it's very, very dangerous. And this is the big step. I mean, we've been, gradualism is the government takeover of medical care has been gradual since 1965. But this is a major step because it said you will come in. And one other thing that's packed in there is that they've virtually made it impossible for the doctor still to be an independent doctor because he can't handle all the record keeping. Every single thing the doctor does is going to be sent to a computer in Washington. Every visit, every drug that is prescribed and they're going to grade the doctors. And you say, well, that's a pretty good idea. But what if you're a doctor that takes the tougher cases? And what if the doctors then say, well, I don't want any tough cases, and he has a better record than the good doctor? That's all coming up. No, it should be repealed, but in the meantime, we should allow people to get out. It would be the medical savings account. The best thing in the world that we could have now, we do have the medical savings account, but they discourage that. That means that you can put $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 away, whatever the law would permit, put it into a savings account, be especially attractive to young people. And if you don't spend it, you get to keep it and use it in the future. And it should be used for the small expenditures, the doctor office visits. Then you would be negotiating this and the prices would come down. When third party pays, that is really bad. That always pushes the prices up to the maximum. So it would be the emphasis on medical savings account. But ultimately, in a free society, you should have very, very little government involved. Like I mentioned before, I'd work on the transition and try to take care of the people who have become totally dependent. But Obamacare is not going to help your medical care. What's that? A year?
In the paper this morning, there was an article about unemployment in Iowa, which is 5.7%. It was also indicated that there's about 1,000 welding jobs available immediately. What would you do as president to promote retraining for unemployed people who have been working and need to acquire new skills, good paying jobs?
He was asking about what can we do or what should the government do to get people who are better trained to take jobs, because even though there's high unemployment, there's still a lot of jobs going begging. But they're at both ends. Some are scientific jobs, that need technology, but because our educational system is deteriorated, we don't have enough educated people. But even on the low end of the spectrum, sometimes if you're getting a pretty good check on unemployment and welfare checks, why go take a job at $6 or $8? You might lose $1 an hour. You're not going to do it, so that's a disincentive. And so the welfare state plays a major role in the way labor works. It discourages some people from really taking a job that they'd have to take, but it's also the way our system is fixed up. And right now it's not as big a problem because our economy is weak, but the illegals coming in, they would come in and they would benefit from the welfare system too. They could bring their family, deliver a baby here, they become a citizen, they go on the welfare roll. So welfare is a real distortion and there's a cost. So in Texas, some of our schools and our hospitals have gone bankrupt in California, and I think that's a distortion. But I think the real question he's asking is, how are we going to get people better educated to take these jobs? Because we have businesses come now, still, even under these conditions, they're looking for people in Texas that will do some construction work and farm work and fishing work. Our people just won't take the jobs. So I think that's why you have to get rid of those incentives not to take the job. But to get a better educational system, it has to be changed in our whole philosophy of education. That I think there should be more on-job training. But it used to be in the old days that you could go and you could be a trainee if they needed somebody to be a good mechanic. And all you learn on the job. But then they wouldn't make much money, and it might be below a certain wage, and so there's too much interference. But I think there's been some improvement on that. There's been some private schools coming up and trying to offer some training. But one reason I think that some people don't get the training is the cost is too high because of the inflation. It is a very serious problem. But I would not favor the idea that, okay, we need 1,000 more so-and-so type of engineers, and therefore we take from this group to give to this group to say you study engineering. You have to get back to a market force where there is an incentive to take an on-job training job to better yourself and to improve. That used to be the way it was done, but today I think we removed those incentives.
Sir, Dr. Paul, what would you do to keep keep us safe, are you making some valid points about our foreign policy and about
Well, I'm not
overspending in
hearing you, so
military?
we're gonna wait till we get the mic to you.
How would you handle a Congress hostile to your policies?
Congress, what?
Hostile to your policies.
That is the big question, how do you get people to agree? Well, there might be always some that will be hostile, but you have to bring people together on these issues. And that's one thing that the freedom philosophy does, it brings people together, because what I'm talking about here today is not characteristic exactly of what the other Republican candidates are talking about, because they won't cut anything from overseas, but neither do many Democrats want to. But you have to bring people together on civil liberties. It'll be a different group. For the foreign policy, it'll be a different group. For market, it'll be a different group. If I win the election, a lot of new members will come in. But ultimately, there will be less hostility if they know what you want. If the people want this, and you send your message to the congressman, they'll respond. For instance, last year when we had, we had the audit the Fed bill, which was overwhelming support, Republicans and Democrats. But it didn't come because I went and twisted arms. I didn't have the clout to say, do this, do this. It was because the people, matter of fact, every congressman in Iowa last year supported the audit bill. So it comes from the people. And the people respond to, actually, there's a lot of education involved in this. People have to believe it's in their best interest to push their congressman in a certain direction. But the good news is, we have a lot of congressmen who are rather flexible and they like their jobs, so they might just, once you send them the message, just say, oh, is that what I have to do to keep this job? They'll come our way.